go right into planning commission
Beautiful.
because,
Right.
I will call the June 5th, 2025 Plan Commission meeting to order. Brandy, would you do a roll call, please?
yes, Dolly.
Here.
Kukacek. Here. Case.
Here.
Aletsky.
Present.
Colhane.
Here.
Spire.
Here.
Dargis Johnson.
We have a quorum. At the end of the meeting, there is a time for the agenda for open public comment. Please submit those public comments. If you have any, please give them to Brandy and we will address that if it doesn't otherwise appear on the agenda. I would request a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Aletsky.
Second.
Second by Dargis Johnson.
Order, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
I would like to take a moment under new business to discuss an option of making a substitute. I'm sorry. I'm going to restate this. I'd like to make a substitute motion to include under new business a discussion and possible action for the planning commission to initiate a rezoning of property within the city to R2.
Is that a substitute motion to approve the agenda then?
And be to approve the agenda as amended.
A little louder.
It would be to approve the agenda as amended. So first, I'm making a substitute motion.
Yes.
We act on the substitute motion to add agenda under new business. Agenda under new business. If that fails, we're back to the motion
Correct.
to approve.
Correct. So we have a substitute motion to approve an agenda as amended. We have a second for that.
Second.
Second by, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, just for an explanation, I'm not sure how the agenda item is going to play out tonight. I just want to be prepared in the event we need an option, a placeholder to have another discussion after the action on the regular agenda item 6A.
Sounds good. And we're putting this under,
Hold on, is this,
It's
is it
purely-
the role of the staff
It's
possibly?
it's purely acceptable under Robert's rules.
Okay,
And being that we have no specific bylaws established for the planning commission, it allows for the planning commission to set its own agenda.
yeah, okay.
so we're adding an item under new business. We have a motion and a second for an amended agenda. Any further discussion regarding the amended agenda? I would do a roll call on the amended agenda motion.
Dargis Johnson. Spire. Colhane.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Case.
Yes.
Kukacek.
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
Six. Yes. Is there 5 or 7?
6-1.
6-1. Motion passes. My agenda is amended, my lord. Is it Monday if there ever was one on Thursday. I would now request a motion to approve the minutes for May 22nd Plan Commission.
So moved.
Motion by Kasich.
Yes.
Any second?
So many different ways of saying that name.
Second by Dargis Johnson. Any questions, comments, concerns regarding the May 22, 2025 minutes for Plan Commission? Hearing none, all those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes. Regular agenda is 6A. Another stab at the Mansell edition. Go ahead, Brandy.
Okay, thank you, Liam. So as you're familiar, the last time that you guys saw this, you had a recommended approval for the R3 multifamily residential district. When this went to city council, it was discussed at the first reading that a PUD, planned unit development, may be more tolerable. And then ultimately, the R3 zoning was denied at city council 2-5. So that is where then in that, after the first reading, the developers went back to the drawing board to secure a PUD. And then that we had this on the heels for timing, and so that they have an answer of how they're supposed to proceed. At this, that's why that is before you today. And so the denial happened on Monday. The DRT reviewed this and approved it to come forward. Some points here, they did include an additional lot 5A now. So to meet the minimum lot requirements for a PUD, which was 3 acres, so they have 3.85 acres. The good thing about this, it will be reserved as open space, undeveloped, because it is jurisdictional wetland. So I feel like that is a positive thing that can only be shown on a PUD. The other thing is that with the existing residential neighborhood and the concerns that have been brought forward, the PUD is for land in situations where modifications of specific provisions of this ordinance will not be contrary to its intent and purpose, and that it's a greater benefit to the city than a development under conventional zoning district regulations would be. So the issue with the denial was the density and what that maximum could be. The R2, as we discussed at city council, also is too dense for this area. So, or it's perceived to be too dense, because if you went R2 with the total square footage, you could have and actually this is using the previous square footage. So you could have 8 fourplexes, or 12 duplexes, or 18 single family homes. So, and that was without this increase in square footage. Obviously, lot 5 is pretty, it's undevelopable because it's jurisdictional wetland. So that's
Lot
kind of
5A,
excuse me,
you said lot 5 or lot 5A?
lot 5A.
I'm just looking at this page here. Mansell third edition lot 5A.
Okay.
That's the wetland.
Yep.
I just confirmed.
No. So anyways, the R2 has a higher density. Now with this PUD, what they're showing is, and yes, across the street, there's R3 zoning designation. It's obviously very much developed as single family homes or duplexes. So the PUD is showing that they are actually utilizing a density that is less than what the R1 single family residential district would require. So each unit has around 20,000 square feet per unit. An R1 single family home only requires 9,000. So what they're doing is basically having the density meet R1, actually way less dense than R1, but utilizing a fourplex, which is a R2 type of development. But by going PUD, it does not allow them to potentially put 8 structures in there. They can only do 2 structures with 4 units each, how it's shown on this PUD plan. So staff does recommend this zoning designation as PUD, planned unit development. This was also discussed at city council, and that is where it is before planning commission today for action.
Questions for staff?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Okay, now, let's say that down the road, they want to add some storage garages or extra garages. Would they have to come back and reapply? It was a PUD,
Yes.
they would come before a board, planning or board of adjustments.
Yep, they would have to amend the PUD plan.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions for staff?
Yes, please.
Go ahead.
So the plan right now with PUD is how many units, Brandon? That they would request?
8. 8 units, 2 structures.
And that's what we talked about last time, right? When
Yep.
we were at the R3.
But they're with an R3, they had the possibility of having 60 units.
But if they're telling us that they're only building the 4, why would they go more? And why would they not do it under R3 as opposed to PUD? What's the difference?
R3 got voted down.
No, I know. But they're telling us they were gonna do 8 units with the R3 and we approved that. And now with the PUD,
They don't try, the city council did.
no, I know they did it, but I'm saying, so with the PUD, what's holding them to only 8 units?
Cause otherwise they would have to come back and reapply showing what they're doing.
PUD is, we're approving the zoning designation, but you're also approving the
The
plan
plan.
itself, the diagram, the layout.
Yes.
And if they deviate from the layout, it would require planning commission and city council approval.
Okay,
Todd, did you want to sit there?
so my next question then, let's just say a tornado comes and takes that out, okay? Both buildings.
Mhm.
It's still PUD planning, so I could come in next time and put a whole nother plan that would have to be okay, or since it's PUD now, I would have free reign.
This PUD would stay, if everything was wiped out, they had to start over. This is what would be in place. And then, but if they changed any aspect of it, they would have to come back. So if it got wiped out and they wanted to do something different, they'd have to come back. So this locks it in exactly as it is today.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
But now if it was still R3 and it got wiped out, then
Mhm.
they could put in the 60-some units.
They could sell it,
still.
anyone else could develop it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But a PUD, they're locked into what we're approving.
Additional questions for staff?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
The other key distinction that just to clarify is that the setting aside of the wetlands at 5 lot there, because that wasn't necessarily explicit in the last approval we set forward, right?
They didn't include it.
Right, so that's another distinction here with the PUD is that's being set aside.
Yep. Cause otherwise it was a separate lot
Yeah.
and it was zoned R1.
That's actually adjacent to the R1, the most proximate area to the R1 across the street. So this is actually shifting it more closer to the R3 across the street.
Other questions for staff? Randy, is there, at the risk of opening a can of worms here, what I don't see on this one that I did see on the first PUD was an allocation for the bike trail. This obviously is the last leg of the lake that doesn't have a bike trail. I know they had offered that initially in the first PUD, or one of the many plans that they brought in front of us. What's the story with that?
That they're not showing the bike trail?
Yeah, what's the,
So this is already planned out. The bike trail is a DOT project and it's already planned.
so it'll be adjacent to the roadway.
Yeah.
Running through the property. Because I know that was one of the suggestions
Mhm.
that they have graciously provided to us. Okay,
Yep, but that was added cost, obviously too, so no, it'll stay in the right of way.
all right, understood. I just wanted to make sure that
It's a good.
that we weren't gonna run into an issue later on, but so the DOT on whatever that is, what is that? Is that South Lake Drive still?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What DOT, county?
the whole bike trail project was the DOT grant project.
Oh. So the state's covering that portion of it,
There's a cost share.
and that'll bring us up to right on the other side of the property where it reconnects.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Answer my questions. Any other questions for staff? Hearing none, I'll open the public hearing and ask the applicant or applicants to come and address the board. Again, please identify yourself for everyone.
Russell Warner of Partners in Camsco. Aaron Hansen, partner in Camsco. So I'll basically be reiterating what Brandy has already said. So the first time we applied was in R3, but we could have originally done 60 units if we wanted to. As it is zoned now in R1, we can do up to 18 homes, single family. This PUD is limiting us to 8 addresses. And to speak to that, you can see on the PUD, there's only one approach to South Lake Drive. And with this PUD, we had to bring in approximately 1 more acre into the development that we weren't previously planning on, which will remain untouched. It'll remain wetlands.
Is that orange line, sorry, Mr. Warner, is that orange line, is that the jurisdictional wetland boundary that we're looking at on that map? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
Kind of,
Oh, right.
I believe so.
Yeah,
No,
this is red, this being orange.
Yeah,
that orange line, that's the boundary
The orange is delineation or determination.
for the wetland.
Correct.
no, you're good. I actually can't see
Oh,
I mean, I think we all understand what you guys are trying to do. Is there anything else that you want to add?
you mentioned the bike trail. We didn't include it in here
Yeah.
because there was a lot of positive, negative discussion last time. Russell wasn't part of the
The first PUD?
first PUD.
Sorry, Russ.
But that's okay, I was, so, basically, we would remain open to, discussion on granting an easement to get the bike trail off of South Lake Drive. I guess I care more about that because I live across the street, so I see that as a benefit to the community. If we wanted to come along, Toby Slough and do it there too, we'd be open to granting an easement for that as well to facilitate the community. But seeing as it is a DOT project, you know, we're open to it. If the city and DOT wants to talk about that, we'd love to have that discussion.
Understood? Questions for the applicants?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Stargett.
So your parking is underneath? For your owners?
The garages are rear facing.
Yeah, they're facing the,
South.
and I guess, so it's just that block that you have shown, so that's including the garage in that, or is those little,
The garage is included in that footprint.
so visitors would park just in front of those, their
Yes.
friends?
Correct. Correct.
Correct.
Well, I assume the aprons will face Toby Slough, is that?
Correct.
Okay.
With, I think you guys can see it there, but with one approach.
Yeah.
So only,
And then you guys own the lot to the west also?
Correct. The two lots to the west.
There's two.
those are our.
Correct.
further questions for applicants? If hearing none, you guys can go sit down and we'll see if there's anybody who has to speak in favor or against this. Are there any proponents to the PUD as proposed? Any proponents? Opponents to the PUD? Any opponents? Come on up, Mr. Roby. Please identify yourself. And tell me which hat you're wearing today.
Good afternoon. I am a Lake resident, Mark Roby, 346 North Lake Drive, but I'm also on the board of Lake and Vesco Water Project District, and I've served for 10, 11 years on those chairs. I'd like to make a comment germane to what was the motion that was just modified. I teach Robert's Rules of Order, so you are correct, Todd. However, open meetings, I see a clear violation of open meetings notice by adjusting and offering an R2 solution. So I'll just pass
I
it.
would gladly, on another item, argue with that on a sidebar because
And
I've got yours.
If I was writing the editorial in the paper, which I used to do, I'd be commenting on that. Because the R2, as the city council debated for a period of time, offers a density equation far greater than the PUD, which was noticed to the public. So neighbors aren't here possibly because they're accepting a PUD. I'm making a supposition here. Or if they knew it could go R2, they may be here. So I just let the board know, I think you're on thin ice for what it's worth. Now, on the motion of the PUD,
We'll save that for discussion, Mr. Case. We'll save any of that for discussion.
on the motion or on the application for PUD, this is deja vu all over again for the Lake and Vesco Water Project District. As was clearly stated at the Monday City Council meeting, they've had the opportunity to go R1 since it was annexed into the city, and we missed a big opportunity to debate that at that time, the water district. Since that time, we've been in front of this commission and the council multiple times and not at every meeting. But the testimony is this is a fragile, environmentally protected part of the lake ecosystem. And that's what Lake Compesca Water Project District is tasked with. And we stand in front of you today to suggest this is not a good area for development of the lake. There are tons of properties around the lake. I happen to purchase a property from the city across the lake from my home, which is an ideal example of where you could develop and not affect a wetland area for PUD apartments or whatever, if zoning were allowed. So there are tons of properties around the lake, and yet what we do as a community in violation, I say opposed to the Compesca Master Plan, where this particular area is called out, we're developing it. Doesn't make sense. And the county has taken a stance at multiple occasions when it came to environmental issues, and I don't see our city ever taking a stance and deferring to other agencies. And this commission is part of that. So I'd encourage you to resist the motion to rezone this property. The developer can build on an R1 lot. It's been zoned in, so he has an economic opportunity. But the density and the issues of environmental wetlands and everything else that come with this, I would encourage you to resist it for those reasons.
Mr. Roby, can I ask you some questions?
You certainly can.
You propose R1, but
No, it is R1.
excuse me, you propose leaving it R1. Yes, I'm sorry, I don't mean to get into a pedantic discussion about that. You want us to oppose the PUD in favor of leaving it R1. R1 would in theory have more hard surface space. Is that the concern, isn't it?
It is,
From an environmental.
but we missed our opportunity
when we
when we
annexed it,
rezoned in 2018.
when
So it is
yeah.
what it is. I mean, yeah, we resist that too, but there's nothing this commission or the council can do. The developer has an economic interest to want to do something to return on their investment, and they have that with an R1 zone.
But isn't this a less worse option than an R1?
I don't think you could build to the level of R1 density and sell those lots. I live at the lake. I know what's feasible. They might get another 1 or 2 houses on there. And if they got more, they'd make a lot more money, but I doubt it. You got a slough in your backyard, which is flood storage, water quality, fish hatchery, you name it. It's a great part of the ecosystem of the lake.
Absolutely, but the jurisdictional wetland and which I think includes the entire riparian zone,
Right.
is undeveloped in any scenario, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to strike a balance here, though, because I agree with you as a frequent user of Compesca that we should protect the lake. But something's going to happen here. Don't we want the least worst option to happen?
I think R1 is the least worst option.
Okay. All right.
That's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Position, and I appreciate.
I don't know what the neighbors would say to you that were here at the city council meeting, but.
Okay. I just, from a protection standpoint, you're wearing that hat today though, right?
Yes,
Representing the, okay.
yes, the district.
I just wanted to understand the position. I appreciate you engaging with me.
Thank you.
Further proponents? Mr. Blow, please come up and identify yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Blow. I live at 446 South Lake Drive. I'm the chairman of the Lake Compesca Water Project District. A quick aside, we had our annual meeting about a month ago, and for 2 years in a row, we have had record attendance. And people have really taken an interest in the lake. We're really encouraged, and I don't know, you probably saw our banners and some stuff, but we really have tried to encourage as much participation as possible. We got some ideas, we passed them along to the mayor. I think you should be aware, and you probably are aware, that the lake is becoming more and more an issue. And the people there were taxpayers. It wasn't the general public. It was the taxpayers from around the lake. And I think they're understanding more and more that they have a stake in what's going on. I testified Monday night, and I'm not going to go over a lot of that. Our real interest is water quality and what role that particular property plays in water quality for the lake. And I've served on various task forces for the last, I don't know, a long time, 5 or 6 years, and the dam task force and all of those things. And, you know, a lot of this is intertwined and really needs to be looked at as the big picture. And part of the big picture would be stop and think from Fargo and maybe from the Canadian border all the way to Omaha and maybe all the way to Kansas City. What city has a lake with about 14 miles of paved road surrounding it? If that's not unique, I don't know what it is. I mean, we've got a lot of lakes around here, but they don't serve the purposes and the needs the way our lake does. And, you know, we've been called the jewel of Watertown and things like that. Well, if you had a piece of property that was absolutely unique and you wanted to preserve it, you might want to do some things that we wouldn't do with Grass Lake. There were some comments the other night about it's very difficult to develop for developers in Watertown. I take exception with that as far as the lake's concerned. It ought to be a little tougher for developers at the lake. They ought to be held to a little higher standard. What about this bare hill that we have just down the road a little bit from this property, and all the renderings we saw and what it was going to do and how many restaurants it was going to have and how many beds and how many different units. And I worry that when we get to the PUD, we start expanding the definition of what can be done. And I think that's why, you know, we look at the R1 as the lesser of the evils that we're sort of stuck with here. And I just hope that we can arrive at some sort of a, and I don't know, I don't want to say compromise regarding that property because I'm not sure that's unique. There's hardly anything like that Toby Slough property left on the lake. So I think we need to be really careful. And so to use the word compromise, maybe I won't use that, but that we could arrive at some decisions that would make it much easier for the contractor than we've made it. I mean, we've been, you know, this is like Groundhog Day. And it would, maybe you, I know we're on our second group of contractors, and maybe you were on our third, and ownership and things. And believe me, that's not what we're interested in. We want development. We want people here. But we can't foul the gem that's bringing people here, or this is over. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blow. Any further opponents or proponents, neutral parties, anybody else?
No green light.
We're gonna talk about.
Just gotta talk loud. Thank you, Chairman Liam. I am Colleen. I'm Lynn Jurens, resident of Watertown and city councilman. I offer a different perspective because for some reason I get a lot of messages. And that's good. I've not received any messages from proponents. They just go to Facebook after these are done and take after people. They don't stop, reach out, and call. So I'm going to bring just a little perspective than maybe what we've seen in the public eye. And a lot of it does have to do with testimony from Monday night and a little bit about what Greg has just talked about. Greg, I'll give you an update. That big pile of dirt after 4.5 years on South Lake Drive does have fall seeded dormant grass planted on it. So
It's really dormant.
so, things are getting there. But I think that's what's put a bad taste in a lot of people that love Lake Compesca, love the Watertown area and call it their home. And actually they look to move here. Are examples like that. And why should that affect a new project? Well, because this is, in the words of a councilman, one of the last pristine, and it is a fragile area, which a lot of the message I get are emotional because of the fragile area. You, like me, maybe others that have traveled, I know Bonnie's traveled around the country at other fisheries and other lakes, and we see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we don't want this lake to turn out that way. The jewel/gem of Watertown that also has taken the responsibility to put sewage system all the way around, which makes a big difference and has made a big difference on the cleanliness. But a lot of what my question is going to be about is interpreting the buffer zone. And when I look at a map like this, I often try to go, what are we putting in there? And before Brandy or one of you or someone answers that, it really has a lot to do with protecting the wetland. And that's kind of been the biggest concern of a lot of constituents and even of myself, because of what you see being done right, wrong, and indifferent, and also what we've seen done wrong on Lake Compesca. There wasn't a worse day in the world when I saw load after load of side dumps being filled up with an excavator on South Lake Drive just a year or two ago. I didn't write down the date because I don't really like to go back and think of those things, but they were ripping out cattails, they were ripping out trees, they were ripping out shrubs. And those of us that understand wetlands just a little bit or ecosystems know that that's not a good day for a lake. That's the stabilization of the soil. That's the protection of runoff that goes into a lake, are the trees, the shrubs, and the cattails. That's the cleanliness. So that's probably where most of my questions are this afternoon is the protection and what
what interprets this, and in the PUD, I believe that's usually spelled out, am I correct?
Yeah, so it is in the narrative, and basically all of the wetland areas will be developed. The other thing, you know, as far as there is developable land on this property, it's not all within a wetland, and presumably the street and the lake lots that are mentioned already disconnected the wetland from the lake years ago. So this one is existing, but it's not being touched. Like Toby Slough and the wetland is not being developed.
So what are we requiring? What have they put forth in this PUD that is going to replace the trees that have already been ripped out? Because there's a pile of them there. Do we have certain requirements in our ordinance? But it's a PUD, so we can require that stuff. And Toby Slough is connected. It's just not as good as it once was prior to South Lake Drive. And they had also, I'll let you answer that one first.
So they have that belt of trees that will exist. And yeah, they have to have 1 tree per 50 feet, which it does have. But as far as the city goes, if somebody's private property rights, there's only so much, you know, that we can regulate as far as that they have, what they have to retain.
So in a PUD, you can't require more than 1 tree per 50 feet?
You can, yeah.
Okay. All right. The other thing is, and Chairman Colhane brought up the bike trail. That was one good question. It also reminded me that they were going to possibly connect or make a better connection with Toby Slough to Lake Compesca, or there was some sort of in their first PUD application, there was going to be, you remember, there was going to be some sort of work with the game fishing parks. Was that done?
No, and that was done with a different developer, like a different group of developers. So that is scratched. But the reason why is like that would add how they were showing that loop. Yes, it would be nice, but there was quite a bit of additional cost for how they had it looped. And then, are you talking the connectivity to the lake?
Yeah, it's connected by
Oh, were they showing like a box culvert?
yes, that was one thing. I believe the applicant, one of the applicants talked about that. Had to do something, I think Aaron is still the
Common
common denominator here in the previous application.
There's an old culvert there, and it's been an issue for a long time, because I know
Yeah.
Mr. DeVille showed up at a Lake Compesca watershed meeting back in 2016 when I was running. I remember that, yeah.
The Lake and Pesca master plan showed how a box culvert would be a connector to wetland areas to the lake. So that might also be like if they were trying to at that time, but that's not included in this plan.
Okay, nothing included.
No.
You have to excuse me, I can't remember if it was public discussion that Aaron had, and maybe Aaron wants to still chat about it, or if we were just having a side discussion on the work that he was offering to do and be a part of. Even though things have changed, it's still the waterways being connected is still a vital part, even though South Lake Drive's there. Having that waterway is still a pretty important thing. There's a lot of aquatic life that does transfer between the two.
And that's not gonna change. Like, that will still be there. The bike trail, I will say that, it was offered by the developers to do like grading or be a part of the project, but we couldn't make that coordination happen because of it being a state project. So that's where they did make that offer. But no, as far as like the existing culvert and the connection, that's not gonna change.
But is there any discussion now that we can have? Is there any, so there's nothing in the application for that?
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah,
May I ask a question?
go ahead,
City Councilman Jurgens Are you asking to make the culvert bigger, making the box culvert having a larger area of water volume to transport to the lake, or what are you asking for, I guess? specifically?
I'm not asking, I'm asking if there's anything in the plans, in the PUD plan. I don't know if the public has access to the whole plan, but there was discussion and it was good discussion.
At the previous PUD.
Correct,
Was it a
correct.
different developer than today?
There's a common denominator.
Different ownership.
There's a common denominator. Aaron was the one having the discussion anyway, and he's still the applicant, so. All right,
Thank you, Councilmember Jerens.
I'm good.
Appreciate your comments. Any other opponents, proponents, neutral parties? Anybody that wants to speak on this? Mr. Strandell, anyone else? I'll let you guys, I'll let the applicants come up and address some of the concerns here before
How about they go
everything's done. Yes, I'll have you guys come up last. So Mr. Strandell has got the floor. Please identify yourself.
Hi, I'm John Strandell, 1017 South Lake Drive. I am one of the neighbors that lives just about a block east of this particular proposal, right across from Lauren Burke's farm site, actually. Been there about 20 years. I just want to make you guys have heard a lot of these arguments that have been, Monday night, was a pretty heavy duty discussion. I suppose you've gotten some feedback on that. One of the things that at the Monday night meeting that you guys have passed on, I heard you had passed on the recommendation with a unanimous decision, and one of the reasons for that was that was in the testimony was that there was nobody opposed to it. It showed up at the planning commission meeting. Unfortunately, that's I've had some surgery recently. That's why I'm getting around on this walker. But so I missed the meeting. But I had to get in here, even though the elevator didn't work today. Hopefully, I'll get back down on it. But anyway, yeah, I know that there's no lack of interest in this on the part of our neighbors, and there were quite a few of them here last Monday night. I'm not going to beat you to death with any of those, repeating all the things that you've already heard about the wetlands, and I can't add to anything that Mr. Roby and the other people talked about. But my concern, aside from the wetlands, is the narrow street, the traffic density, and the density that we're going to be dealing with. And I know that with R1, we're going to still have some density. I don't see a particularly big difference on the proposals here between the PUD and a R3 proposals, and what you can actually do with those particular decisions. So I think that R1, it is an R1 now. It was purchased as an R1, and I would like to let you know that that my interest is to keep it R1 and let these gentlemen do the building on that basis. And thanks for letting me talk about it.
Thank you, Mr. Strandell. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Any other opponents, neutral parties? I'll because you're a council member, Lynn, I'll give you a brief.
After.
All right. Anyone else to speak on behalf of or against it? I'll just wait. I'm not going to close the public hearing. I'll give you guys just a chance to respond. The applicants to respond. Okay, Mr. Jerens, go ahead.
So leave it to excuse me, I'll be in front of the microphone here. So thank you, Chairman Cohen, for letting me back up here. Leave it to a newsman in the back of the room to bring up the article from 2023 that PUD did include work with the box culvert. And I'm not here to oppose this project, but I'm here to see and hear if it's going to be done responsibly. And this is one thing that I'd like there to be some discussion on, and maybe when I'm done, they're gonna come up and chat about this, but this might be something that would be very beneficial, is going back to that PUD and looking at that work to be done on that waterway.
Mr. Chair, just
A lot of times it gets dug out with a shovel or with something, because it's just been an issue for a while.
Go ahead, Mr. Case.
do we know on the map where the current connecting point between the lake and this development is? Is it, I think it's outside the boundaries of the PUD.
It's hard to tell from this map.
It
Yeah,
is.
I thought it went like
We-
in front of.
We have the map here. She can probably pretty
Not
easily.
this part, but
It
sure.
does look like it's in the, within the dotted line.
I think it
Is
is.
it right there? I just didn't know where it came across.
This is set aside.
Kind of like.
So you can kind of see where that contour,
By Bill's place,
Yeah,
right?
it comes
Right.
under-
Right there.
there.
I was just curious where it came across.
But
All right, we're gonna keep order here as best we can. Did you have any follow-ups, Mr. Case?
No, I was just curious where it was located.
Good question, Mr. Case. Applicants, go ahead. Respond. I'll give you a few minutes to respond.
Okay, so as far as the box culvert goes, I was part of the ownership group when that was originally proposed. One of the other owners in that ownership group owned adjacent property on the lake and still does, I believe at this time. And he would help facilitate a box culvert if GFNP, if the city wanted that done, we would facilitate that. Because I was part of one of the topics in the Lake Impassca master plan. That involved a lot that is not within this PUD. We are still under ownership of that lot and retain that, but we do not own the adjacent property. If that is a discussion that everybody wanted to have, I mean, we're still very open-minded to that. I'm a lake property owner. I care about that. That matters to me. So if we want to do that in the future, I think it's not part of this discussion. It's not part of this PUD, but definitely always willing to have those discussions. Same thing with the bike path, still willing to have that discussion. As it relates to density, I mean, the main thing going from R1 down to, I believe it's down to a PUD because it's less dense, less curb cuts. We got one curb cut versus many more. If we stay with R1, we will definitely have to look at maximizing density within that R1. There will likely be more doors and curb cuts. I don't want that as a neighbor. If I can do this, this is what I really, really want to do. I feel strongly that it is best for the community and the neighborhood.
Go ahead.
on the, no, there goes the box culvert
Oh.
thing that goes beside Ron Bill's. It's already there.
Yeah.
Would you maintain that or cut it off, or do you have any plans for that?
I would, I don't think,
To clarify, we will not be doing any work in the wetlands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No-
And
no
that,
mass
and that
grading.
goes into
It's
the wetland.
protected by silt
Okay.
fence. There's a 25 foot space.
as a personal matter, it's important.
Yeah,
It's very important.
yeah.
And also to clarify the wetlands and the environmental issues, we knew that this was a special area and we took the appropriate steps before we even continued or started grading the land. We did a wetland determination, which is done by a wetland specialist that takes soil samples, determine if there has been certain species and breakdown of
It's about 400.
vegetation
It's about
to
400.
determine if it is, we're building in wetlands or not. And that line determines the boundary between wetland and upland. So essentially, it's been determined by a professional that we are upland of the wetlands.
We've taken additional precautions above and beyond what's required. We have a natural buffer between the silt fence that is required and Toby Slough. So we have maintained additional precautions because, again, I hear everybody talking about how precious it is. I understand that.
We even considered that placing the buildings.
Right, we want to get them as far away from the
Okay,
resource.
my next question is then, are you gonna have like grass and, it's not gonna be concrete right up to the wetlands, it'll be grass and stuff, so water can
Where
filter
you
through?
can-
Will you have the special plants that go with it?
This line here,
Yeah,
from here over is grass.
okay.
Which is 20-some feet,
This
30
is
feet.
probably more than 20. Well, there's a detention pond. Stormwater quality.
Yeah, yeah, there's detention pond as a buffer as well.
Good, I like that.
We could have placed that differently, but we did it to maximize the actual buffer.
And if it remained R1, this amount of dirt work would still be required. Whether it's R3, R2, PUD, it would be required.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So my understanding is the culvert at the issue, as I heard you testify, the approach to the lake is outside of your, ownership. That's another lot owned by somebody else, is that correct?
We have the south side.
Correct.
The north side, as I understand it, would most likely entertain something like that if the city, the GFNP, if that's what everybody wants, that's what the community wants, we would work to facilitate that. We are not going to be pushing that or any sort of agenda item. So,
And then you're also constrained by the Corps of Engineers, the city restrictions on the wetlands.
yeah, that's correct. The Corps reviews a delineation, and then after that, it then becomes determination.
Yeah, so when it would come time for a permit, they would submit to the Corps, but they need that delineation done.
Would you be opposed to any conditions placed on this PUD for you to improve the culvert to the lake and any other considerations?
That's within the right of way.
Yeah,
It's in the right of way, so we can't even do that. Okay.
No.
So that's on the municipality.
Yep. And it's on another private property owner.
I would say that I'd be good. I'd be willing.
So, yeah, the applicant, just clarification, is that he would entertain if it was put on them, they maintain responsibility, but I don't know if that's the right answer.
We're willing facilitators. Is probably the better way I would put that.
Further questions for the proponents, for the applicants, excuse me. Any further questions before I close the public hearing? Any additional clarification? Yeah, no, that's not how we're gonna do it. He had an opportunity to speak. I'm sorry, he did. Oh,
Thank you.
okay, good. No more questions for the applicant. All right, hearing that, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion on the PUD.
Mr. Chair, I would make a motion to approve the PUD as presented.
Motion by Spire, second by Dolly. Further discussion regarding the PUD.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Case.
I've been giving this a lot of thought over the last several years as well, from a planning perspective. And I want to start by saying that I feel bad for this developer and other developers being acted something as a political football between the planning commission, the city council, and going back and forth. And I'm going to apologize in advance for maybe punting on this issue again. As of right now, I am seriously considering voting no on the PUD. And it has nothing to do specifically with the development as prescribed or the arguments regarding R1 or wetlands or what have you. I think it's what we're proposing to do is an errored interpretation of how plan unit developments technically work. We're using it because it's the closest thing that we have to try to make something fit. But plan unit developments are really something to be more flexible in proposing a development. They're trying to allow for things that aren't afforded for in the existing code. For example, mixed uses, mixed densities, different design requirements, different setback standards. That's the real purpose of a planned unit development. And even within our city code, it talks about a PUD, that planning commission that the proposed PUD result in a greater benefit to the city than one developed under a conventional zoning district regulations. The development as proposed here would meet a conventional zoning district that we currently have on the books. Yes, I understand that when we rezone a piece of property, we are allowing a whole litany of other uses, and things that can occur, and we let the market flesh out how it actually ends up developing. And that's really the true purpose of zoning in many ways, when you think from an economic development perspective, is that you're trying to identify areas of the community where you would allow certain types of uses and certain types of densities, and then you allow the market to dictate how the development proceeds. I originally supported the R3 zoning, but after watching the city council meeting, I believe I was wrong on that, from the exact density requirement that was talked about then as far as 60 units. In hindsight, I think I erred on that. But I don't believe the PUD is the right tool. I think an R2 zoning is still more appropriate for the intended use as proposed. Has to do with some geography. It's right across the street from an R3 zoning. The R2 acts as a transitional zone. It's near a public recreation area that generates more traffic than what you would find in this R2 area. There's more traffic being generated when Sunnyside was open many years ago on a Friday and a Saturday night. Water and sanitary sewer issues that were brought up in city council discussion, I believe, have been reviewed by DRT. And again, talking this from a PUD zoning perspective, I think it should be used, again, I said, to be more flexible and not be used as the design to exert what I would consider excessive control over development. I mean, I think PUD zoning is analogous to, I need a 10mm wrench and all I've got is a 1/2 inch and 9/16 in the tool bag. So that's why I need the PUD to make that wrench fit. And it becomes a dangerous path forward where we're trying to restrict development whenever something else butts up against a conventional R1, R2, or R3 zoning districts. And when I think we start to micromanage land use development and not let the free market play some factor or role in the development of a community, I think it results in fewer opportunities. I think fewer individuals will take interest in pledging capital and assuming risk to develop. And then ultimately what happens is we all end up with higher prices for residential development or commercial development as we go. Granted, this is just my opinion, and it's based on 30 years of experience, background knowledge, a professional reputation. This is what I do for a living. And, if there's several of you that would agree with me on this, I believe there's another solution that we could discuss. But I realize there's a lot of plenty smart people in the room and on this board, and they may disagree with me, and that's fine. However, I've come to this decision, and I'm going to stand on principle and adherence, in my belief, to what the city comprehensive plan and zoning ordinance does. That's all I have to say.
Further board discussion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to
Go
make
ahead,
a comment as well.
Ms. Kagachek.
Close enough.
Casey.
Still not right.
Kagachek.
Yes. Remember it next time.
Probably.
Give you them. So, I understand what Mr. Case here is saying in that we have a system of zoning and a system of ordinances that are, in theory, made to work a certain way. So I get it. I get the idea of wanting to do it the right way. But if what I think that solution might be becomes what the action is, we're going to have the same conversation over again. And while I don't disagree that PUDs are misused as an element of control over developers and how that money is spent in a way to, kind of maybe push them so far that you hope they won't do something, or you have some protection against the great unknown of something being sold or something burning down, of this very long, far pace situation. So saying that, the element that we didn't have in R3 situation, and I listened to the council meeting on Monday night in my car. I actually drove the area while I was listening to it in my car. And there's a lot of talk about density and a lot of talk about this wanting to be R1. And what I'm looking at here is fewer rooftops, fewer driveways, fewer cars than R1 would be. It seems like we kind of move the goalpost every time someone gives us what we want. And at some point, we have to make a decision that makes sense. It's okay to say, we just don't want it. It's okay to say that. But if we're going to keep running developers around and having them make changes that are what we wanted, or that accomplish even a better result than what we say we want, then it does make it difficult for us to attract developers and for them to want to take that on. So we make a recommendation here, but ultimately this will lie on the city council. But if we're all having the same argument, and if we are all, if I ask for something and that something is given to you and I still say no, are we just going to continue to move the goalpost toward the result that we want, but we just don't want to say out loud? So that is why, I voted for this as R3, because I'm putting trust in someone keeping their word and doing what they say they're going to do. And maybe in some cases that's foolish to take that, put that much trust in someone and have no control over it. And yes, they can do whatever they want if they change their mind tomorrow. But what we're doing is we're making it very clear we don't trust anybody with the development plan. We put a PUD on it because then we can control the elements and then be done with it. Yeah, it's going to just, it is a precedent. So that is just saying, I'm hearing everything. I don't, I agree. I grew up on the lake myself. I agree. It is a sacred place, but nothing's necessarily going to stay the same forever. And if the wetlands are protected and they're doing what they said they were going to do, for my own opinion, I'm going to see no reason to oppose this.
Go ahead, Mr.
So just, so having already come on record as recommended approval for the R3 going to the city council, and essentially revisiting it now, they came to us with the same plan for the R3, and they adjusted it now. You used a tool that was available to make it work, and it's providing additional protections. And I don't think the developer has been coerced into bringing forward something that wasn't, that they didn't want to do. This is exactly what they came to us before. This is what they're coming to us again to do. And it's actually more restrictive now, and it puts more controls in place. So I actually applaud the creative use of PUD. And I do believe that it's appropriate for developers to come forward with their concept and present it and have a good discussion on it amongst the community. So for that reason, I would just say that I think this is much more appropriate in having already, signed off on what they previously presented. I think this is definitely the appropriate way forward.
Randy, go ahead.
This is like, the PUD is the only tool we have for a scenario like this. We don't have enough zoning districts. That is something that I want to continue to work with. But when you have a sensitive area, I mean, that really is textbook PUD, in my professional opinion.
Thank you, Brandy. Any further board discussion? Go ahead.
I'm gonna agree with Mr. Ruby. I know I was on the board when we annexed this in from the county. And I think in my naive mind, I saw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 homes coming in. Great. Not maybe thinking that somebody someday is gonna maximize those lots. I saw 7 roofs. Great. But now we've fought this since we brought it in. To your point, maybe it should have been brought in. Maybe it should have just left it be undeveloped forever. So hindsight's 20/20. So my point is, I rubber stamped it to bring it in, thinking 7 roofs. And it's not going to, we're being proposed with 8 now.
2 roofs.
Majority of that land being taken.
2 roofs.
But 8 residents, yeah. And I did agree with the 3 last time, just because it gave me those few units. I don't want to see storage units. If I see another storage unit, I may vomit. It's just, it's not storage next to the lake. And so it is giving 8 people the opportunity to buy. I guess I like the idea that they're going to condo them out. Better than just, rentals, because it does give ownership. So there should be pride of ownership in them. So they should maintain nicely. So whether the right tool is the PUD to Todd's point or not, I did approve the plan like Bill said, so, I'm kind of equal to a little bit to say I would never approve a PUD here because of the, you didn't know what you were getting. So with the volatile spot of this, I would have preferred to see it never been brought in, but we're beyond that. So I think this is the least intrusive at this point. And to this point, we are in control.
Further board discussion, preferably from someone who hasn't spoken yet. Mr. Golly?
Yeah, so Todd, I can see your points. Totally agree that we don't want to go down the slippery slope of PUDs unless it's absolutely necessary. Generally don't like to see them. In this particular case, though, because this has been kicked back multiple times, and it does address the concerns, it certainly still aligns with land use plan and density. It's less dense in total potential than R1 usage. Lots. It addresses the water quality with the restrictions placed on the wetlands. It's got screening requirements built into all these restrictions that have been asked for over and over throughout the years looking at this property. In this particular case, given the history of it, I'm in favor.
Well, I myself personally, I agree with this as long as it's so restrictive. And I agree with the R1, but if we're gonna have a whole bunch of driveways, I would rather see one driveway. And what I like is if they wanted to bring in storage garages or something, they'd have to come back. They couldn't. And, they have to really maintain where the runoff is and stuff. They're gonna have a holding pond. They have to go by their plans.
Thank you. Excellent discussion. Anyone else? I will try to keep it short because we've been here now for a very long time. I struggled with this one. I probably changed my mind 2 or 3 times during listening to both discussion and to proponents and opponents. I am concerned with the quality of our water. But the flip side is if we put 7 or 8, maybe we don't get 7 or 8, as Mr. Roby identified. But we put those hard surfaces, you put garages and those kinds of things. I'm afraid that we end up with more impermeable surface and more likely damage to the riparian zone. This appears to be a relatively controlled deal as it relates to the riparian area and the the wetlands. It's delineated. I don't love it, because in an ideal world, this wouldn't be anything, right? In an ideal world, this would be nature, if we were seriously concerned. In an ideal world, we wouldn't have built up all around the lake and filled in all the wetlands that we've already filled in. At least in this instance, it doesn't appear that we're filling in any jurisdictional wetlands, and it is the least worst option. In addition to that, when we talk about lifestyle things, the bike trail is of concern to me. If the bike trail is on this side of the road, which seems like it would make sense to do it, if we had 6 or 7 or 5 even driveways, that would be worse than one single ingress egress. That is compelling to me. We've got 2 buildings, 2 roofs, relatively small. I am not, and I have not been compelled by the density argument at all, this entire discussion. From going back, I think that we tend to be that strikes me as kind of a not my backyard argument. So I'll end with that. Any further responses, questions from the board before we take a roll call vote?
You mentioned.
No, I'm gonna take a roll call vote. So,
Ready?
Brandy, go ahead and call the roll.
Darius Johnson.
Reluctantly, yes.
Spire.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Valetsky.
Yes.
Case.
No.
Kirkpatrick.
Yes.
Dolly.
Yes.
6-1, the motion for the PUD passes. And may it be the last time that this come in front of us, please. Open public comment. Does anybody have anything to say that they didn't already say? Good. New business. There's no need for new business.
Mr. Chair, I was going to say, my proposed discussion item becomes based on the action of the planning commission.
Little louder.
The action previously taken makes the need for any action. This is moot. I do want to make one comment to a comment made by Roby, esteemed former editor of Watertown Public Opinion.
Publisher.
Excuse me.
Publisher, go.
Perspective. Open meeting laws would apply if we were taking final action without a notice. All would have happened out of this discussion with instruction to staff to begin the process, which would then include a subsequent public hearing. Ergo, the open meeting laws would not apply because we have the prerogative to instruct staff to work on our behalf in the interim between meetings when nothing is going to happen. And I got that from legal counsel who's
Community members, Mr. Roby, Mr. Case, because Mr. Case has forgotten more about zoning than I will ever know, and Mr. Roby has forgotten more about open meeting laws than I will ever know. So, thank you. Old
Love
business.
that for everyone. None.
No, good. No old business. Thank you, Brandy. Executive session, no need for that. And I'm just gonna say we're adjourned. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
okay.
Brandy.
Yes,
someone
yes.
help her with the art.
No.
Yep. See, look at the steps of that one.
3 minutes.